Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, and good afternoon, depending on where you are, I guess. And I'm Todd DeVoe, and I've been involved responding to emergencies and disasters since, 1989. And in 1999, I started my journey into the field of emergency management while I was working at EMS. And so from there, I moved into medical logistics, and I started out in logistics, and I became an educator, and I became a teacher at post-secondary level, and learning and sharing what I have learned is a passion for me. So welcome to Business Continuity Today, and together we're going to learn. So today we're going to talk about smart decisions. And yes, yesterday or last week we talked about decision making as well. And today we're talking about the lessons that your parents didn't teach you. So this is the second of our four discussions on decision making. And no one has taught you how to decide. And it's something that we just sort of do. So we wake up in the morning and we make decisions, and that's kind of what we do, because when we're children, our parents didn't go over how to make proper decisions, what the process is, how to create mental models, and so forth. So learning to make effective decisions will have the greatest impact on your profession and your personal life. And I know, because I've made so many wrong decisions, and learning from life lessons is always hard. So today, as we discuss decision-making principles, I've pulled ideas and concepts from many different people from very different amounts of experience and wisdom, all the way from Plato to Socrates to Simon Sinek, right, of today. So learning how to make effective decision, like I said, is going to make a great impact on you. So when I was in school, I took classes on logic, critical thinking, critical writing, right? And I never saw a class on how to make critical decisions. And I wasn't looking for a class on how to make decisions. I don't even know if there was one that was there, if I would take it, because it's a skill that most people think they have just because we make decisions every day. So making better decisions isn't that one skill, but rather a series and tools of frameworks and fundamentals. And that's what we're going to distinguish between making good decisions, right, or what good decision makers are, from poor decisions, or what poor decision makers are. It's a series of diverse mental framework and tools. So most of us operate around with like a guy with one tool. The old adage is, if a guy has a hammer, everything becomes the nail. And so we're going to find to solve everything with that one tool. And so the idea here is to create yourself a mental toolbox, right, of different processes to help you make good decisions. Because in the field of emergency management and business continuity, this is what we do, right? We sit into a big room with other people and we make decisions. And so we should have some sort of process that we have to make good decisions, right? And so we're going to talk about mental models, systems thinking, things like this, in this over the next couple of weeks. So, but you probably don't even know it. You probably already think in mental models. And mental models are mental chunks of knowledge that represent a concept, right? So as one writer will say, gravity, right, is a model, right? And so it's the concept, right? It's a model. But we understand it, right? So we understand that if we drop this pen, it's going to fall to the ground, right? We don't have to think through the process of the why it's happening and what's going on. We understand that gravity affects this. We also understand that gravity keeps us here on Earth, right? And so we've learned this throughout the years. And so that is our mental model of what gravity is. I was having a conversation last night with my son about the concept of, we're driving in a car. If you throw a ball up in the car, right, the ball is going to land into your hand, right? However, if you're taking a look at this from the top view here, from like a satellite, right, and as that ball is falling, not only is it falling down from your location to 2-3 feet or inches, or I guess feet would be inches, right, into your hand as you're driving in your car, it's also moving forward with you at 80 miles an hour. I guess 65 if you want to be within the law, right? So as you're moving forward, the ball is also moving forward. So that is an interesting concept. So think about this for a minute. Now, however, if you open up your your sunroof and you throw that ball up, the ball's not going to come back down because the car is moving and the wind shear and stuff like this. So you have an understanding of how this works, right? Even though to you, when you're sitting in the car, you throw the ball up, it's staying in one spot. It's actually moving with you. So to really figure this out, you have to have that understanding and that mental model of how things are working. Now, I know this is not the idea of decision making at this point, but I'm using this as an example of how things that we just take for granted are there. And although those models that we already understand because we've learned those through the years. So how do we apply this to decision making? So think about your state in life here. Think about your career, what we're doing in emergency management, your relationships, anything that's consequential to you, right? And how many important decisions have you made already with that in mind, right? And so with the benefit of hindsight, how would you make them again? And so how many decisions have you made today? All right. And how did you make those decisions? What to have in your coffee? Are you going to have coffee? What are you going to have for dinner? Those things, right? Is there a better way to actually have those things, those minor decisions made? But let's talk about those decisions that are being made in the context of a larger decision, right? Where things like, are we going to evacuate? Are we not going to evacuate? What's the process that we have through that, right? Is this something for COVID? We'll put it in that context, right? Is it more important right now to get to the vaccines or not to get the vaccine or to wear masks or not to wear masks? Those decisions have to be made in the context of what our mental models are. And we do this already. But then what we're talking about here is how to formalize those. So there's another concept that's out here, which I think could be interesting. It's smart people make terrible decisions, right? See, smart people make terrible decisions because, well, let's look at this for a second. Napoleon. So he decides to invade Russia, right? Bad call. Hitler does this again 130 years later, right? With that hindsight of Napoleon, bad call, right? I guess it's a good call in the sense that the Russians were able to repel that, right? So this is bad decisions are being made, right? An editor decides to publish the O.J. Simpsons if he did it. Bad call, right? Things like this that you think on the other hand that you go, why would you make these decisions? And then the biggest thing here on decision making is if you think about the Challenger explosion, NASA's decision to ignore the O-ring issues in the Challenger, which caused that tragedy, right? So we have people that are out there making these decisions that, in hindsight, you go, why would you do this? This does not make sense, And so, like I said, why? So smart people can make bad decisions. And so we also have the unwise decisions. And what I mean by this is we unintentionally make, bad or dumb decisions. And I think this comes in the idea of the cognitive biases and explaining how, we have this process in our brain where we fill in the story faster than we are able to really process it. And that part of, to me, is very interesting in the sense that when you look at something, right, and we can go back to facial recognition. As children, as babies, we start to recognize our parents' faces quickly, and we understand that a face is a good thing. And so what we end up doing is putting children, if you look at the toys and whatnot, they put faces on everything. Trains, like the Thomas the Train has a face, those type of things, because children already have that cognitive biases that faces and smiles and things like this are a good thing. Well, that is a great idea, because if we had to go through as people, as humans, and every single time we saw something, try to re-recognize it, try to make a decision of what this thing is, it would take a long time for us to do anything. So what we've done through evolution is we have created this thing where we can look at something and understand that this is a car, right? Even though there's different sizes and whatnot, but we all understand this is a car, and our brain allows us to put these decisions in there quickly without having to go through it. So basically, it's like programming a computer, if you will, right? But sometimes we have the wrong information, right? So we make those decisions with wrong assumptions of the facts that could lead to disaster. Because what we're doing is we're trying to make decisions so fast, and we're using this information that just pops into our head that we are making decisions based upon bad assumptions. And this is where we go in with the idea of using mental models to help make decisions. And Derek Cabrera talks about systems thinking and the idea of making these mental models to really work through those audacious, hairy problems, right? And so I find it interesting that we use the hairball as the concept, right? And if you take a look at the hairball, everything's all entangled in there. And that is like a really big problem to tear apart, right? And so that being said, using that mental model to be able to understand that, yeah, this is a hair, we understand it's all wrapped up together, and to be able to find that one string to be able to move ourselves around that hairball to be able to untangle it is what we use these mental models for. And so creating these processes, these thought processes before you have to go in and make a decisions is going to really help out, because what that does is it helps us move those cognitive biases away from our decision-making process into making sound decisions. And it is work, right? It's not easy to do this. So you have to learn and keep learning. And so find out what works for you in your decision-making process and work through those and add those mental models into your process, because that way we are able to break away from those cognitive biases that we have. Some of that ingrained things that put into our heads, like seeing faces in things that where faces don't belong, in that concept, right? But the problem is in this case, we fail to learn at times. And what I mean by this is that we go through and we see these decisions that have been poor, going back to making decisions based upon smart people making bad decisions. We're not learning from other people's mistakes, right? We're not learning from those. So we always say lessons learned, say from the past disasters where poor mistakes were very made and people perished because of it, such as Katrina, for instance. And so did we really learn anything from those mistakes? And so why do we fail to learn? Because we tend to put those into silos and say, well, it's not going to happen again or whatnot. But what we really need to do is build upon, when we're making decisions in emergency management and business continuity, for say, is take a look at those really huge failures, right? And not put those in a silo, but actually put those into the mental model in our decision-making process. And that way we do learn from those mistakes, right? And so we're getting close here to the end, but I really want to go over how we make decisions, right? And when the last time you thought about how you make your decisions. And if you're like most people, we're never really going through how we made those effective decisions. You make those decisions based upon your cognitive biases. You make those decisions based upon things that you are familiar with. You make those decisions based upon just your gut feeling that sometimes is not leading you in the right direction. And you're not using those mental models. You're not using those processes to make quality decisions. You take a look at the saving and loans industry collapse and all those people that were smart. You take a look at the housing bubble burst in 2008. All those people that were smart, that were actually still putting money into the real estate during this time. And you would think all these people are so trained and are so specialized to understand what's going on. Yet those decisions that they made really doomed a lot of people in the economic crash. So the idea here is to break away from where you think is your normal set of decision-making processes, come into the idea of having those mental models so we could look at the greater vast of things. And as Charles Munger and Warren Buffett, when they were doing their investing, right, they were able to take themselves out of the bubble. They're able to look at it from different angles, and they were able to apply their decision-making models, and they were able to actually move their money out of real estate during these times and dramatically make more money for their investors. So as we look at these things, you have to really kind of take yourself out of the issue and look at these from a different angle. And that's what we do in emergency management. We should be looking at things from that 30,000 level, right? And not at the ground level or into the weeds. And it will really help make with mental models. Well, next week, we'll be discussing mental models, how to choose those mental models, and how to apply those mental models in your decision-making process. So thank you for being with us today, and visit Titan HST for all your communication needs. And remember to follow us on your favorite podcast player, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and join us next week. Until then, stay safe and stay hydrated.